and welcome to part 1 of our two-part series on website evaluation. Today I will be introducing you to a tool that is useful whenever we want to evaluate websites for accurate sources. The internet is home to millions of websites from millions of different people and organizations. When we search for information, results may pop up that we are unfamiliar with. As researchers, we want to be able to produce the most accurate information possible. It's our job as a researcher to weed out all the results in order to be able to find the most relevant information. So, how do we evaluate our sources? With a little tool called TRAP. This stands for timeliness, relevance, accuracy, author, and purpose. Using this acronym, you'll be able to look at a website and find out if it's reliable or not. The first letter in our acronym is T, for timeliness. Timeliness means that the information presented is up to date and current on the information provided. Let's say you're doing a research project on the solar system. You find two websites and you decide to check them out. The first one was written in 2002 and describes Pluto as the 9th planet in our solar system, and you found the article on a reliable science-based website that you recognized. Sounds great. You then move on to the second article you found. This one was written in 2017, but Pluto's not listed as part of our solar system. In fact, the solar system now only has 8 planets. So, how do you know which website is relevant? Depending on what you're researching, you generally always want to make the most up-to-date information published. Topics like science, technology, and current events can change over time. The first website we looked at was correct at one point, but science evolves. So usually we want to use the most current and up-to-date websites when we're finding sources. Sometimes though, older websites and sources are still helpful. Topics like history, recipes, and literature are safe to use. This is because they are not topics that have changed significantly over time. So going back to our earlier example, it would be better, in this case, to go with the newest article because it is the most accurate. The next letter is R, for relevance. How relevant is the information both to yourself and your research? We want to make sure the information is useful to you. If you skim over the website, ask yourself, is the reading level 1 you're comfortable with? Does the information relate to your topic? If you decide yes, then the website is useful to you. Let's say you're hanging out with a friend and they say, hey, did you know the first cupcake ever made was in 1769? Later on, when you're hungry for something sweet, you think about this fact and you want to verify the information. A website with a cupcake recipe probably won't give you what you're looking for, unless you're wanting to make the cupcakes. This is because it is not relevant to your search question. Was the first cupcake really made in 1769? Instead, you need a website that has information about the history of cupcakes rather than how to make them. After you've figured out if a website is relevant to you, the next step is figuring out if the information is accurate. The next letter is A, for accuracy. Could the information be correct? You may be wondering, how would I know if the information is accurate? I'm not the expert. And while you're technically correct, you are not the expert. You don't need to be an expert to find out if a website may be giving you inaccurate information. The best way to quickly tell if a website is accurate without having to read the whole thing or be an expert is to skim the website for these things. Number 1, grammar. Do you see any words that are misspelled or punctuation that doesn't fit? If you do, this is a sign the website is not accurate. Number 2, consistent information. Is the information you are skimming familiar? Does the information presented back up what you already know or is consistent in information that you've already seen? Number 3, outside sources. Does the website cite outside sources to back up their information? A reliable website will often list their resources. If they do not, you should question the author and what they know, which seamlessly brings us to our next letter, A, for author. Who is the creator of the information that we are willing to trust? How do you get this information? You get to know the author. As a researcher, you want to find out as much as possible about the author. We want to know, is the author an expert on the topic they are researching? What makes them an expert? Do they have a bunch of college degrees or do they work in that field? And if they're not an expert, are they part of a trusted group like National Geographic or NASA? Getting to know more about the author will allow you to get a better understanding into why they are publishing this information. For what benefit? That brings us to our final letter, P, for purpose. The reason the author published the information. As we get to know the author, we should question them. Ask, what was the purpose of publishing this information? Why did they publish this information? There are many reasons why websites are published. Some are to sell you something, like toy websites or advertising websites. Some are to entertain you, like social media or streaming services. Some are trying to persuade you, like blogs or some political websites. And others, hopefully most in our cases, are just wanting to inform you, like NASA or National Geographic. A quick way to check the purpose of a website is to look at the URL, more specifically, the last 3 digits of the URL. Websites that end in .gov, .edu, or .org are usually run by trusted organizations such as the government or an educational organization. These groups are not trying to sell users anything or persuade. They are experts in their field and are publishing the information for the purpose of informing the user. For example, World Wildlife is a nonprofit organization with a mission to save endangered species. And NASA is a government-run website that puts current information on outer space to keep the audience up to date on new discoveries. .com websites are usually trying to sell or persuade the audience. For example, this website looks like an informative website on how to make Christmas cookies. But if you look closer, you will see that they are actually advertising their own products in the recipe, so you will buy them. Another thing to watch out for when finding out the purpose of a website is the bias. Bias means the author's personal feelings or opinions about the topic may be present, and they may be trying to persuade the reader. An article about the benefits of milk from GotMilk.com, an advertising campaign advocating for milk consumption, will have a very different point of view on the health benefits of milk than the Harvard Medical School website will. Both articles hold some sort of bias. Your job as the researcher is not to find the unbiased source, because everyone has their own opinions. Your job is to decide if the information relates to your research question. Trap is a tool that you should refer to whenever you begin reviewing sources online. This way, you can trap any information that might steer you in the wrong direction. I want you to pause the video here and write down any questions that you had during the video. Write down if anything was unclear or didn't make any sense, if any parts of the acronym didn't make any sense. Remember, there are no stupid questions. We will go over your questions in part 2. In the next part of this session, part 2, we will be putting our knowledge to the test. Next time, we will go over the questions you wrote down from this session, and we will be evaluating websites using the tools we just learned.